To our distinguished guests who have traveled to be here with us this afternoon. On that subject, I have to announce that one of our proposed speakers, Michael E. Drobak, the executive director of the Small UAV Coalition, couldn't make it because he was stuck in snow in Washington, D.C., and on the tarmac for 5 hours without the ability to get out. So he will not be with us today, and we can all count our blessings that we're here and not there. So I also want to thank the members of the committee. This is I think, a very interesting opportunity to address a subject matter that, frankly, I don't think has been talked about enough, and certainly recognizes that the future is here, and the question is, are we prepared for it? And given, I might say, the response to a rather confined bill I have done on, introduced on drones, this is a subject matter that is absolutely wide open, and I think is ripe for a full and robust discussion. And hopefully today we are going to have that opportunity to consider both the promise and the pitfalls associated with this new and very exciting technology. We face the prospect of having potentially thousands of commercial and private unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, also known as remote piloted aircraft, or simply as drones, which I think we all recognize that title, to take out to California skies in the coming years. And this reality focuses our attention on whether state law is really prepared to incorporate these vehicles and the policy issues associated with their operation. How do we incorporate those into California's landscape? Now, again, this is not a distant, far-off future. The brave new world is here, and it is here now. Drones were a popular gift this holiday season. One of my staff members, in fact, got a drone for Christmas. He's still trying to figure out how to fly it successfully. He says these things are not easy, but he's determined to learn. I told him as long as it's on public space, he'll still have a job. And he assured me that that was exclusively his intent. Now, recently, just this past year, the FAA banned drones from the Super Bowl, declaring it a no-drone zone, which is an interesting title. A drone crashed just a few weeks ago into the White House lawn, and raised important security questions for our country at that point. Again, this is all sort of fomenting over a short period of time, and yet drone development has been going on for quite a while. I actually had my own personal experience a few months ago while in the backyard of a home where I was vacationing with my husband and friends, a place where we had an expectation that we could enjoy our morning coffee and figure out how to change the world. And suddenly a drone was about 15 feet away, hovering about eyeball to eyeball, taking photos of us. I had no idea who where this came from. It turned out it was a neighbor wondering who was in his neighbor's yard. I will tell you that that was quite disconcerting to see that, and really felt like a tremendous invasion of privacy, which is what sort of brought this issue to my personal attention. Now, we know drones are already becoming popular and prevalent, and it's time we began an important public conversation about their innovative uses, as well as the challenges they pose to our long-held values, and in particular, to our right of privacy. Here in California, the right of privacy is not an implied right as it is in the federal Constitution. The right of privacy is written into Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution of the State of California. Among our fundamental rights are life, liberty, property, and privacy. So here we are staring a drone eyeball to eyeball when we have a fundamentally protected right in our state. This oversight hearing, I hope, will just be the beginning of that conversation, and we'll examine how well we are prepared for the increasing prevalence of drones in our skies and, frankly, other innovative technologies which have been the subject of legislation in the past and will be, I know, going forward. We need to start asking ourselves these fundamental questions. When is the use of a drone appropriate And when does it become an invasion of privacy? How do we balance our right to privacy with technological innovation? How do we ensure that we're not so dazzled by technology that we fail to notice the erosion of our fundamental rights? And how do we also ensure that our very legitimate concerns about privacy, property, and civil liberties do not necessarily restrict innovations that are beneficial to society? To assist us in exploring these issues, I've asked representatives from across industry and academia to better help us understand the impacts these drones will have in California, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that shortly. Drone technology is poised to revolutionize the way Californians do business on a variety of different levels, from delivering groceries and e-commerce orders to revolutionizing private security, to changing the way farmers image their crops. This technology holds a promise to transform entire industrial sectors. In fact, a recent report on drone technology projected that almost $12 billion will be spent globally on aerial drones over the next decade in these new commercial fields alone. However, as with most new technologies, the prospect of adding drones to our skies presents some very challenging public policy questions, to say nothing of logistics. First among these is how to welcome these new technologies into our lives without surrendering our right to privacy. And as I mentioned, this is written into our state's constitution. Whether we're in the private, commercial, or government sectors, we must fully embrace the fact that all Californians have this inalienable right to pursue and obtain privacy. And because of their inherent maneuverability and the ease with which they may enter spaces not possible for manned aircraft, the growth of this new technology presents a challenge to maintaining traditional boundaries that separate public and private spaces. The unrestricted use of drones, especially those that have sound and video recording equipment, threatens to erode this fundamental right. In our country, we've already witnessed conflicts between neighbors over the use of these vehicles. Perhaps because we don't experience the immediate consequences of our actions, individuals are using drones to do things they wouldn't imagine doing in person, such as I mentioned, flying into other people's backyards and videotaping their neighbors. As a matter of public policy, we need to consider the impact these vehicles will have on our communities, and we must find the path that balances these challenges with the opportunities for innovation that these items present for our future. I have a bill I mentioned, SB 142. It represents an attempt to strike a balance, particularly with defining the boundary line between private property and public airspace. With this, I hope to set clear expectations for both industry and the public that preserves that distinction between private spaces and public spaces. I'm delighted that we'll be joined here today by stakeholders with expertise in privacy, free speech, property rights, and land management who can help illuminate some of the areas where California needs to focus as it crafts policy to integrate drones into our world. And I'd like to emphasize that this is indeed a state issue. I'm sure everyone has heard of the FAA unveiling its draft regulations this past Friday on drone operations, and that the President issued a memorandum governing how federal agencies conduct drone flights and gather information with these machines. These are important public conversations, and I'm pleased that after quite a bit of delay, the FAA has finally moved forward with its rulemaking and its proposals. However, that does not mean that we as state policymakers should simply wait for Washington to act. Horrors. Quite to the contrary, drone operations in our airspace raise critical state law issues ranging from how we define property rights to how we protect our unique wildlife, our majestic state parks and scenic areas, the security of our public buildings, and our fundamental right to privacy. These are areas where we know as Californians and as California legislature, we need to ensure that our state is ready for these new technologies. Now, the good news is we're not going to address all those issues in great detail today. If we were, we'd be here for another month. But we are hoping to focus to get the conversation going to do an overview, and we're delighted that we have people from the industry here to talk about the exciting opportunities and future that drones bring, but we should be steering. The California public has a right to know what these opportunities are, and the expectations of Californians need to be protected as we go forward. We should be steering the role we want these technologies to take. They should not be steering us. I hope this hearing will be just the beginning of a public conversation about the important role that drones can play in our lives, how we can harness their potential while ensuring that our long-held values, particularly our right to privacy, are not being compromised. So thank you again to all of you who have joined us today, to members of the committee, and I know we all look forward to a robust and constructive conversation. So with that, I'd invite if members have perhaps 60 seconds they'd like to share their thoughts, or should we just get started? All right, the will of the committee is to move forward. So if we could have our first panel come forward. This is a panel, Drones, Present and Future Uses. We have Bruce Parks, here Yang Quan Chen, Sarah Walsh, Colonel Dana Heschmeyer, Chief Ken Pimlott, and Ross Gerlich Bell. Folks, if you could join us. And we have a bit of time, and hope that there will be questions, if there are any, from the committee members after we have this panel provide us with their very interesting and exciting, I suspect, information. So if we can start with Bruce Parks, who is the Silicon Valley chapter of the Association of Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for joining us. It is indeed.
Well, thank you. I want to, my name is Bruce Parks, and I'm one of the founders of a small company called AgriFlight. We built our own plane and ground station looking at the agricultural fields in Sacramento and trying to explore that particular piece of the drone world. I am, as you said, the treasurer of the Silicon Valley AUVSI, and I'm also a member of the executive board. I want to thank Senator Jackson and the other members of the panel for giving us all the opportunity to be here today. I believe that one of the most important issues facing California, as well as the United States, is the integration of unmanned vehicles, not only in our airspace, but on our roads, our waterways, and more importantly, our culture. The California chapters of the AUVSI are composed of over 1,000 individual members and companies, many of whom are closely focused on the development of the small UAVs. Let me just share an example of some of the companies that are members of the Silicon Valley chapter. Airware is located in San Francisco. It has created both hardware and software for the small drone industry. They have created an autopilot that allows a small aircraft to fly autonomously, to fly a predetermined grid, and then return to its launch point. 2D3 sensing in San Mateo is able to take imagery and information gathered from these drones and creating a geo-synced map that can tell you what is on the ground. Liquid Robotics is another very interesting company. They're located in Sunnyvale. Fast Company magazine recently voted them to be one of the top 50 innovative companies in the country. They join such other companies as Google, Chipotle, LinkedIn, and others. They produce a product, they produce many, but one of the products that they produce is called a wave glider. And I think you folks may have the images of the slides that I had taken. I thought we could use today, but you can, if you look at it, you can see it's a very, very interesting technology. It is the first hybrid wave and solar propelled unmanned ocean-going aircraft. There's another company, Seabotics, in San Diego. They use drones for underwater inspections. They can crawl the ocean floor. They can inspect ships. They can inspect any kind of underwater structure. They are also used frequently to inspect the fisheries and under the ocean sea life. Another company that is doing some phenomenal work is just located in Richmond. It's called the Marine Advanced Research Center. They've developed autonomous boats that can be used to monitor bays, rivers, and coastlines. They worked in conjunction with Google in their mapping to map the California coast, and they can do that in an unmanned manner and not put people at jeopardy. Amazon, of course, is looking for ways to expand their package delivery system. 3D Robotics is located in Berkeley and in Austin, Texas, San Diego, and produces aircraft from their Tijuana production facility. They were one of the earliest innovators in the industry. They started off with DIY drones, and so their platform is pretty much open source. Velodyne they're in Morgan Hill. They use something called LiDAR, and which is a light activated radar. And if you look at some of the Google cars, you can see this device on the roof. And what that does is it uses light to measure distance from the vehicle to the surrounding area. And it can be used in construction. It can be used in all manners of ways. It can give you really a three-dimensional measured image of what is on the ground. Google, of course, is a major player in both robotics, drones, and obviously the driverless car market. Alta Devices is an interesting company. They're located in the Bay Area. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to pass this around. This is a flexible solar panel that can be adhered to almost anything.
If you give that to the sergeant, she'll go ahead and pass it on. Thank you.
That's a very expensive piece of material there. I think it's $12,000 a square foot to produce that. But it's also, yes, candlelightly, it's also very efficient. It will generate at about a 30% efficiency factor. So it's a very interesting piece of technology. So these are just a few of the examples of that are nothing more really than a snapshot of the industry. There's so many companies out there. I mean, I've mentioned a few, but there are thousands and thousands of companies across this country, not only in the state of California. And the breadth and the depth of the industries that are connected to this is really a bit hard to imagine. The AUVSI has projected that this industry alone will generate something in the order of 100,000 jobs and over $82 billion in revenue in the 10-year period after we get the okay from the FAA. And of course, that's just in the airborne drones. And I want to point out to you something that you need to think about, and that is that drones are really robots. And whether it's a robot that's on a car or on the ground or under the ocean, it's still a robot, and they perform very, very similar functions. I want to, and these businesses are really what I view as sort of the corn seed of the future. I mean, these things are getting planted now, and they're going to give us results that we really can't imagine as we sit here. About 60 or 70 years ago, Churchill said that the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. And that's truly the case, because what you see here, and most particularly in the state of California, is that creative juices that are really going to fuel what we see in the coming generations. From my perspective, today we are sitting at the confluence of untold technologies: robotics, unmanned vehicles, nanotechnology, biotechnology, the internet, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, precision agriculture, and many, many other multiple uses. Industries are emerging and converging. They're being mashed up at an increasing rate of speed and in ways that no single individual can imagine. The rate of accelerated change is itself accelerating. And we are at the knee of the exponential growth curve in many, many industries that we can't even imagine as we sit here. This hearing is important, and I was very, very happy to hear some of the things that you had to say, Senator, that you recognize that importance, because I think it's profoundly important. And that what we have here is the opportunity, as you pointed out, to have a conversation that's going to be impactful and important for all of us. So I've talked to you about what some of the companies that are involved in the Silicon Valley chapter. But to look at it more broadly, you can look at the use in agriculture, which many think will be the largest utilization. Drones can be used to check crops, to check water usage. They can check the canopies and health of plants. They can check for vectors. They can find them before they spread into the crops. It's predicted that drones may be able to account for as much as a 10% increase in crop yields. They can be used for thermal imaging, topographical surveys, and the use of still many undeveloped sensors, either field-mounted or on an aircraft. Farmers can use these aircraft to fly their fields rather than having to walk them. They can see things from the air that they can't see on the ground. If you walk a crop, you can see basically 10 feet on either side of you closely. When you're flying in an aircraft and you've got the images, you can see that crop in great detail. The value of that is really immeasurable. But agriculture, of course, is not the only use of the UAVs. There are more than I can truly mention. A while back, I visited with a young fellow who's a PhD candidate at Carnegie Mellon. His name is Pei Zhang. He is creating what is called swarm drones. They are a handheld drone that can be flown in multiples, 5, 10, 20, 100, and they all have the ability to talk to themselves and to be able to fly in unison. So that if you take these things and you launch them in an area where you have whether it's a natural disaster, whether you've got floods or earthquakes, fires, what have you, these little devices can give you an immediate reading on what you're looking at. It's really, truly, it is, to me at least, it's really mind-blowing technology.
If you could wrap it up, I apologize.
I will. So let me also say that the World Wildlife Fund uses these, that the Nature Conservancy uses them, that the Vancouver Aquarium and the US-based National Oceanic Organization also uses them. So it's a broad use, and I really thank you for your time. I want to leave you with one final thought expressed by Albert Einstein. The world we have made as a result of the level of thinking we have done thus far creates problems we cannot solve at the same level of thinking at which we created them. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, and I think once we get through with the panel, there may be some questions, but I think Albert Einstein's wisdom is yet again unquestionable. Thank you, sir. And now, is it Dr. Chen, if you would like to go ahead?
All right.
If we could hold this to about 5 to 7 minutes, I apologize.
Great. So I have a time budget. So I'm from a university setting, UC Merced, and representing the lab I'm leading is called a drone lab in the Central Valley. We have an academic name, it's called Mechatronics, Embedded Systems, and Automation. So I have a flyer. So to show you that yes, you have one. Yeah, that's actually the first 6 slides of a training set I gave to K to 6 teachers so that I inspire them to inspire their students in the class about the future. We see that we are in the age of Wright Brothers 2.0, and I call it a data drone age. So flying a drone, we can have a purpose, right? In addition to getting entertained. And so that's why I put the data in front of it. That's the whole purpose, to gather information to make an informed decision. So let me start by repeat what I did 2 years ago, probably here, regarding the drone age. Okay, so we worry a lot of things. It's just like when the beginning we have the horseless carriage, and we worried about a lot of things like traffic accident and who is responsible. You don't have a horse in front to drive the carriage. Now today we are having a manless aircraft, a pilotless aircraft, or drones, unmanned aircraft. So we are in a similar situation. I'm glad that after the Valentine's Day, FAA finally figured out partially and what we should do, and it's very positive. So looking into the future, I think is very encouraging. Everybody is excited, but a lot of people are still not very happy because they cannot deliver and drop the package yet. So I think a lot of people are still working behind how to make the packet dropping possible. So, so today I'm supposed to share with you some of my viewpoints regarding the present and the future of the drones. So with that said, if we look at our automobile industry today, and it's well organized, and so we have everybody's liability, defined in front before you drive. So then the drones, to me, is the main issue, who is going to pick up the liability. If that part is figured out, then everything is in a situation like the automobile society like today we enjoy. So that's only the beginning. A lot of things will happen, especially insurance, especially the liability, and also the risk assessment, and who is going to certify the drones and the drone operators. That's vague. FAA says somebody must be certified to be able to fly, and who is going to do that? So my lab is working towards that direction as well. Hopefully we'll play a role. And if you check my handout on the bottom part, there's a three-letter phrase called Data Drone Valley, and clearly California is famous for its Silicon Valley. I hope in the future we'll feel proud we have Drone Valley as well. So with that said, from a university point of view, lots of research is needed, and also a drone consortium is needed. We need a knowledge base. And so previously I said that if a person flying a drone without proper certification or liability documentation, so it's equivalent to driving through the traffic red light. It's equivalent to drive under influence, DUI, okay? So it's a threat to other people's safety. So with that in mind, I always ask my lab members to fly responsibly under the FAA compliance. So for your information, my lab has 8 approved FAA certificates of authorization. So we fly in a designated research field under a dedicated research agenda for a dedicated airplane. So we know how to make our activities fully in compliance with federal rules. And now it's relaxed, but I feel like there still need a spirit about follow the rule and be safe and respect others' rights. So another thing is regarding making the drone at a very low cost. That's the very important thing. So I ask you a question here. You buy a 700, 600 iPhone or smartphone, but you're not going to buy one if it is $6,000. The same thing is true. The drone is at $600 level right now. So then it's going to be a phenomenon, and it will be widespread use. Lots of creativity will coming out of it. And so my lab basically is follow this movement and try to answer the question, why us? Okay? What's the innovation we contributing? So for example, this is a few hundred drone, and there's a few bucks of rice bowl. And you can take over that. So you can take a look. I'll pass around. So then we put these propellers. Okay. Just put this one. I'll pass around. You can take a look. So this is a few $100 drone. Then depending on what you do with this one, you can spy your neighbor. Or you can so. But you can also put a glue on your iPhone, put on a stick, do the same thing. So I made this point last time. But we focus on answering scientific questions. Say, for example, we can use this one to sample the water quality. And most recently, we talked to rice growers regarding the salinity contents in the water and in the soil. So do that kind of mapping and accumulate the big data for the future decision making. And that's just one of these interesting projects my lab is doing, what I call scientific data-driven research. So I can stop here.